Hello everybody, I hope you're all feeling well on this New Year's Eve and that you had a wonderful Christmas. Christmas itself seems already quite a long time ago, and we are of course into the New Year resolution season, which is why I am talking today about the true you versus a new you. And it's a theme that I often talk about at this time of year because of the pressure to set New Year's resolutions. I personally don't like New Year's resolutions because for me in the past, and I haven't set them for quite a few years now, but in the past it would be a list of all these aspirational things that I wanted to do, and they'd all have fallen by the wayside, usually well before the end of January. And so I prefer to think about who I really am at my core and what I really want, rather than those New Year's resolutions that are tended to be prompted by what you think you ought to be doing. So, I ought to give up this food, I ought to lose weight, I ought to stop smoking, I ought to stop drinking. These are not all my personal ones, they're just the kind of the typical ones that come up. I ought to do more exercise, that's another classic one at this time of year. But that's what brings the pressure. It's that feeling of we ought to do something rather than it's something that we truly want to do. And what we truly want to do comes from our inner selves. So we need to get in touch with them. So there are two real reasons why New Year's resolutions don't work. One is that they're not things that you at your core really want. So what I was just talking about, they don't align with the true you. And the other reason they might not work is that you don't, in your heart, believe that you can do it, whatever it is. Now that's something about your belief system which needs to be worked on. And that's not what I'm going to talk about today. I've talked about it before and I'll no doubt talk about it again. But if you do need help with breaking limiting beliefs, then by all means get in touch with me and let's have a chat about it. But what I really want to talk about today is getting to the heart of the true you, because undoubtedly there is a lot of change energy around at this time of year, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with stepping into a growth version of yourself, having shed those things that no longer serve you. And I'm all for shedding what no longer serves you. And in fact, bringing in the new, the best way to bring in the new is to release what no longer serves you, because it creates the space and the energetic space for the new to come into your life, rather than if you're still holding on to an old identity, it can be very hard to chip away at it and to introduce new ways of being. But I do keep coming back to the fact that it needs to be all about the true you. So who you really are inside and what you truly want. Now, often we think we know what we want, but that can be conditioned by other people's opinions. It can be conditioned by what we read about in the media. And at this time of year, we see all sorts of articles in magazines and newspapers about a new start, the new you, be a different you in 2025. And yes, you can be different, but that's about being an expanded version of the real you, rather than somebody that you're just not and you don't even want to be. And that's what's crucial for me about setting what I prefer to think of as intentions for the new year. And I set new intentions all the time. It doesn't just have to be at the start of a new year, but it is a good time to be doing it. And in fact, there was a new moon last night. Was it the last night? Anyway, I think it was last night. And that's another really good time to be setting new intentions, because we're in that energy of the new. So, how do you get in touch with the true you in order to make sure that what you are wanting to move into is fully aligned with who you are, and not just some version of yourself that you think you want to be because everybody else wants that, or a version of that? Well, the way to do it is to really listen to your inner self. And the only way you can do that is to spend quiet time with yourself. So you can do it by, if you have an activity that gets you totally absorbed, whether that's just going for a walk, going for a run, going for a swim, or just something that else, like a hobby that really totally absorbs you, which might be knitting, baking, gardening, whatever it is for you, when you're totally absorbed in something, that's when the true you will speak to you. I mean, it will speak to you all the time, but that's when you'll really hear it, because it knows that you're in that quiet state where you're open to listening, and that's why you get ideas popping in those quiet times. But another time to do it is to actually carve out quiet time to get in touch with your inner voice and your inner self. And you can do that at any time that you want to. And it's a good idea to do it on a daily basis, because then you'll get more practice at listening to yourself. And that's what you really want to do in order to find out what you really want and who you really are. And if you're going to do that, then I recommend trying to do it at a similar time each day, because then you just get into the habit of doing it. But you don't have to. I mean, a couple of good times are first thing in the morning, so that you always do it. Or just last thing at night, which you can either do, going off somewhere quiet before you head off to bed, or maybe just when you get into bed and you close your eyes and you really try and focus. I'm rubbish at doing it last thing at night, because I'm a morning person, so last thing at night, all I want to do is go to sleep. So that's no good for me. But you will know what works for you. But all you have to do is find that quiet time. Make sure that you're away from any distractions. You haven't got a phone nearby that can be beeping with notifications. You haven't got somebody in the same room with you who might suddenly ask you something or shout about something. You need to find that quiet time when you're away from everybody else, away from all electronic devices that can pop notifications at you. That includes watches as well. I often forget that. I think I've switched off my phone, and then my watch buzzes when an email comes in, and it really irritates me that I've forgotten. So get rid of all of those devices, and then just sit comfortably and focus on your inner being. Now, your mind will race, because that's what our minds do. They're designed to think. They will head all over the place, and depending on the time of day it is, you might be thinking about what's coming, you might be thinking about what's just gone. But just allow that. It's worse if you actually try and fight that, because then you've got the distraction of fighting it, as well as the fact that those thoughts are popping in. So just let them float away. Just acknowledge that they're there, just let them float away, and keep refocusing on your inner being. Now, there are a couple of ways to do that. You could do it by just focusing on your breath, by literally paying attention to the breath coming in and out of your body, how it feels, maybe how it sounds. You could do it, some people like to light a candle and just focus, like have a soft gaze on the flame, which focuses their attention. You might just like to close your eyes and just really go within. And if I'm going to do that, one of the ways in which I like to do that is to focus on the area behind my third eye, so my third eye chakra here. But with my eyes closed, you kind of roll, you can't see me doing this because I've got my eyes closed, but you roll your eyes upwards a little bit and really focus on that space behind your brow, the centre of your brow. And if you do that, I find, and I know other people have found, that it's a quicker way of getting in touch with your inner self. But if it doesn't work for you, try one of the other methods. Just keep trying each day until you hit on the one that works for you. And even if, don't worry if 3 days in you've tried 3 different methods and your mind's still racing, because your mind will. My mind still races. I've got a terrible racing mind. I shouldn't say terrible, because it's just a thing. It's not bad. It's just what happens. And so I just have to wait. I know that eventually the thoughts will go, and I'll start to quieten down and really focus on my inner self. As I said, I use that trick of focusing behind my third eye. And then just see what happens. See what comes up. You might see things. You might hear things. I mean, an inner hearing. You might just have a feeling, an inner knowing. It depends on how your body works. Everybody's different. But just see what comes to you. And if nothing comes, then fine. But the more that you do it, the more that you will get attuned to listening to your inner voice. And your inner voice will know that you want to hear it. So it will think, it will know that now is the time to be speaking to you. And see what comes up. And it might be nothing you've expected, and that's fine. And it might even be something, telling you not to do something that you thought you were going to do. And again, that's fine. I had one of those recently to do with my business, which was really interesting, and you'll hear more about that no doubt coming up, not today. But my point is, just be open and listen and feel what comes up for you, because that is your inner voice speaking, and that inner voice comes from the true you, your soul essentially. That is you, unconditioned by everything externally. So once that's happened and you just feel that it's the right time to sort of come back to the here and now, grab a piece of paper and a pen, and I should have said perhaps have that to hand before you do this exercise, and then write down what came up for you. Because if you're anything like me, you will forget. You might have a general sense in the days to come of what came up, but you'll forget maybe the details. Sometimes you won't, because it's such a powerful message, and it might just be a one-word message, and you think, well, okay, what's all that about? But write it down. It came up for a reason. Once you've written it down, it gives you that time and space going forward to look at it and think, well, okay, what did that mean? It might be clear straight away what it means, but it might not be, and you might need time for it to land. But that's how you listen to the true you, rather than trying to be some new version of yourself that you think you ought to be. And that's what I feel really strongly that we should get away from. We should get away from being who we think we ought to be, or who somebody else, or we think the world tells us who we ought to be, because that's not us. We're not here to be anybody else. We're here to be the true expression of our souls. And you're the only one who's got that soul and that inner being, and it's trying to talk to you about what to do and where to go next. So make sure you get that quiet time, write down what comes up, and then really focus on what that means for you. So with that said, thank you very much for watching today. Thank you for watching all of the videos that you've watched. I really appreciate all your support, and I hope you have a very, very happy 2025. I'll be back here again next Tuesday. So bye for now.